Hey, MCARBO brother, I'm Chris Nelson, President of MCARBO. Really excited to introduce a new Ruger LCP1, LCP2, and 22 LR version. Yes, it'll work for that extra power magazine release spring. So this is going to ensure you don't have any accidental mag drops while you're shooting, and it's just natural to want to grip these small little frame pistols tightly because they can be a little squirrely and there's not a lot of real estate or purchase there to get your hand on. If you got big hands, it's even more difficult. So with the factory spring, it's very easy to accidentally actuate that mag release and then drop that mag while shooting, which can be a catastrophic failure. You're gonna be stuck with just whatever you got left inside the chamber there. If you got nothing and no mag, you're really screwed. So we went about developing a spring that would work really well to provide good positive tension on that magazine release. And this is something you guys requested. You guys wanted it, so we wanted to provide a good solution. I love the way this feels. This should be the way it is from the factory. It's good, positive tension. It's not difficult to press, but it's deliberate now. This is a deliberate motion. It's not like something you accidentally do. Really getting the most function and performance out of our little Ruger LCPs. Love what it does for it. Just a nice little piece of insurance to make sure you don't have an accidental mag drop when it's most crucial. So these are primarily concealed carry pistols, and that is something we want to avoid. So really like what we did here. Love that we were able to do a simple improvement that makes a world of difference and is great insurance against any sort of catastrophic malfunction, losing a magazine. Let's get on our tabletop, show you how to put this in. Parts needed for this build: the Ruger LCP1, LCP2 extra power magazine release spring by MCARBO. This will also work for the new 22 LR version that just came out. Now the thing with this, it's a 15% stronger spring and it's got improved geometry there. You can see these extra bends which add strength. This is going to ensure the spring won't wear out. It's going to also make sure that we've got enough tension on the mag release that it won't accidentally drop a mag while we're shooting if you got big hands or you just grip pretty tight. And it's something that a small frame pistol like this, naturally you're going to want to grip it tighter. This will ensure you have the most positive tension on your magazine release. You can see the tension set by the gap down here, and we got these extra bends to ensure that it won't wear, won't lose that tension over time. So it's going to always have positive tension, and it's a little bit stronger than the factory spring, so it's going to last longer and ensure that we don't have any accidental magazine drops, which we don't want. So it's a nice little upgrade just to ensure we don't have that catastrophic malfunction. You got one round in the chamber and then you lose your mag, man, bad news. I want to make sure we've always got good magazine release tension. We don't want it accidentally engaging and dropping a mag, so this will do just that. Tools needed for this build: 1/16 inch punch, 3/32 inch punch, 1/8 inch punch, hammer, bench block, micro tip flathead screwdriver, regular tip flathead screwdriver, pair of needle nose pliers. You can see I put a little masking tape on the ends there. I'll explain later why I did that, but that will be handy. Synthetic grease with PTFE, and as always guys, make sure we're in iPro. All right, as always before we begin, let's go ahead and check our firearms, make sure they're clear. Check the chamber, check the bolt face, check the magazine well. This firearm's clear. So I've got an empty mag here. Let's go ahead and just kind of play with the magazine release to see what kind of tension we've got. So when you get a grip on it, you know, is it something that you could easily manipulate? And if it's brand new, you may not really have this issue yet. But if you've used this LCP for some time, you know, you've changed a ton of mags, you put a lot of rounds through it, springs naturally do kind of lose their tension over time. So you can see, not terrible, yeah, not too bad, but I do like having just the extra reassurance that it's not going to accidentally happen. You know, you're gripping the crap out of that thing and then you accidentally hit it and you just lose it enough and you're going to have a malfunction. So we definitely want to make sure this is something that we shore up here. You guys actually requested it, a ton of you did, so we ended up making it. So excited about this. So we'll jump right into it, the disassembly. Grab our little micro tip. We're going to take our little A311 stress-proof carbon steel takedown pin, get it out of here. You can see this one's got the two little dimples there for the LCP2. Some little extra common sense stuff to make it simple. And you've got the improved spring in there to capture this takedown pin. So it's got a little more engagement, which we like, to make sure it doesn't accidentally fall out. It's got to locate in the side, that little notch there. All right, we'll go over that in more detail later. You know, this has got everything that we do for the LCP in it. So you got the stainless steel guide rod in there, you can see that. We don't make an extra power recoil spring yet, but if that's something you guys want, we certainly could. And we've also got the grips and a lighter trigger spring kit in there, giving you a nice, clean, smooth trigger pull. So this is pretty straightforward, all right? We're not gonna need to slide, we can put that down. We're gonna have to go ahead and remove the aluminum frame from the polymer frame, and then what we'll simply do is attack that mag release spring. It's pretty easy and straightforward. All right, so go ahead and get your frame set up on the bench block. You need your 1/8 inch punch and your hammer. We're gonna take out these two pins here. So this is your rear takedown pin, your front takedown pin. All right, we'll start with the rear one. Just tap it right out with that 1/8 inch punch. All right, you can see your rear frame pin right here. It's got that notch cut in the center. That's important. Want to make sure it goes back in the same place. All right, we'll take our next frame pin out, the front one. Should have a little easier time with this one. As you can see, it's completely smooth, so it drops right out real simply. All right, so we got our rear frame pin and our front frame pin removed. Now we need to go ahead and remove that tension on that hammer. All right, so we gotta unhook this hammer spring back here. So your hammer seat is right here. You can easily access that little release just by taking your 3/32 inch punch and just pushing inside the frame. It'll pull right up and out like that. Set that down. Then you can see your hammer spring in there, and you can see that little pin that it rests on. So just take your needle nose pliers, grab it, and let that spring just drop right inside. One thing to take notice of, when we put it back in, you know, it's that little single notch right there on the magazine release side. You can see the magazine release down there. That's how we're gonna put it back in. And that's where that spring's gonna locate, on that single notch, because the other side has got 2 notches. So we'll put that down, worry about that later. Now let's go ahead and separate the aluminum frame from the polymer frame. All right, notoriously on the LCP2, if you got an LCP1, you don't have to worry about this. The LCP2 always trips me up every time. It just doesn't matter how many times I do this, I always forget. There's that little raised portion of aluminum right here where the serial number is. All right, so you've got to pry it apart. So I just like to stick my micro tip in there, you know, almost right down to it, just to provide enough clearance to get that thing past that cutout. All right, and then you push up on your slide stop, and the whole frame's gonna come up and out. And if you have any issues, you can pull back on that trigger just a hair. That safety blade's gonna wanna grab the frame as well. All right, and then push it all up simultaneously. And hopefully it stays together, which is always kind of nice. All right, we'll put our frame down just for a second. We're going back to it. All right, so we've got our aluminum frame here. All the working functional pieces are all captured and retained in here. So you can see this is your takedown pin spring. All right, this is the improved one with the extra engagement. You can see how it locates there on your slide stop to provide tension for it to function. And we'll flip it on over. You see I'm kind of holding it all together. You can see here's your trigger bar and your trigger return spring and how it captures and locates on that trigger bar. So just in case it all exploded on you, there's a quick little view. And we've got a few other videos on how to do all these installations, so it'll be in much better detail if you want to access those. So we'll set this down. We're not going to worry about it just yet. Try not to let it explode on you. It may. See, so there's the takedown pin spring. We'll put it all back together. All right, let's look at our frame. So you can see there's the magazine release spring right there. And there's no real good way to get this thing out other than hopefully you're wearing your eye pro, because this will want to jump out and spring right at your face. You may get lucky and may not have that issue, but you'll take your micro tip and you're going to go in at the right side here. You just want to get that long leg out. So I'm going to attack it from the back here and push to the side. And there it goes, just like that. So here's your factory magazine release spring. Not a whole lot to it. And that's how it was in there. So that little short leg against the side, the polymer frame, this little longer piece locating down inside the magazine release. Right down in there, there's a little tiny hole in it. Let's just pop that out and get a good look at it. We can set our frame down for a second. This is how it went together, just like this. So we're going to replicate something similar to that. So let's go ahead and get our MCARBO spring out and compare them. All right, let's go ahead and open up our Ruger LCP1, LCP2 Extra Power Mag Release Spring by MCARBO. It also works for that new 22LR version. Get a lot of questions about that. We're making stuff for it. Do not worry. But if you have some ideas for some new parts, let us know. We're always open to it. Handy little target on the inside, something to shoot at. And let's compare this spring. All right, so we can go over it in good detail here. I'm going to grab the factory one. Here's the factory spring here on the left and the MCARBO spring here on the right. You can see this spring here doesn't have a lot of strength built into it. It is a thinner wire diameter and it's got one little slight bend right here. Doesn't give it a lot. So this is going to compress a ton and eventually this bend is going to deform and it's going to get weaker and you're not going to have positive tension. You're going to have a little slack in it. It's going to feel like it's almost nothing for a second and then you'll feel the tension. Whereas the MCARBO Extra Power Spring, you can see how we designed it. It's got a larger wire diameter, making it 15% stronger. And also you can see we put these extra bends. It's like it's a little S shape right here. So you got a bend and a bend, putting some more strength and rigidity into the part. Also, it's closer down where it's actually engaging and moving and compressing. So that's gonna make it much stronger. Really love these simple kind of improvements we can do to help benefit the shooter, you know, in the long run. And this is catastrophic malfunction, so we can't have that. And you can see how they stack up and compare. So we pretty much matched most of that OEM geometry, but we went a little bit further. So you got a little extra positive engagement there to ensure that it's not going to have any slack, any slop, or any dead feel to it. All right, and that's what contributes to a lot of those accidental mag drops, is where it's not got that positive tension. It's kind of got a little dead tension, and the engagement on that mag release and the magazine is very slight. So we want to make sure we've got all the engagement we could possibly get out of it, and that it's going to have good positive tension. We're going to go ahead and just put this aside. It's always helpful to keep the stock parts. You never know if you might need it in the future. All right, so we're going to put this baby right in, similar to the way the factory one was. This longer leg is going to go into the mag release. Short one's going to go against the polymer frame there. So it's going to go in just like this. So this straight leg's going against the polymer frame. And one little handy trick, so this will take this operation down from a 20-minute ordeal that could possibly be a little frustrating, and nobody wants that. We want to get the job done. So put a little synthetic grease of PTFE right on top and try to push it into that hole there. You know, this is gunsmith glue. And then take that little leg that's going into the mag release and give it a little grease as well. P for plenty. All right, and what we're going to do is just kind of get it primed. So we're just making sure there's plenty of grease down in that hole there. All right, and that's going to basically hold it together just enough so it doesn't spring out on you. All this seems really weird. Trust me, I know. But it'll make sense here in a minute, and especially when you do it, you're going to be thankful. Trust me, I learned the hard way. All right, so here we go. So we're going to eventually set it up like that. Let's get this baby back in the frame right this second. So grab our frame, grab our mag release. This little engagement side is going to go through the big hole there on the right. So we got it all in there, and let's get that hole where we can see it right there in the center. So you can see that hole way down in there, little tiny hole right there. What we're going to do is take our needle nose pliers and just grip it right here in this straight leg. And this is where I explain the weird tape on these pliers. So those little serrations on the needle nose pliers can sort of stick or bind or grab this spring just enough to knock it out of that hole. Kind of a simple way to ensure we don't have that problem. I'm going to grip it a little higher, kind of at a 45-degree angle, and just drop it right in. All right, get that crazy leg right into the hole on that mag release. Push it right in. This is where that tape comes in handy. Just kind of separate pliers. All right, usually if you had no tape on there, that spring will want to follow your needle nose pliers back out. Use your larger flathead. All right, and we're going to push that straight leg, and you can kind of manipulate your mag release as you do this. So push this straight leg into that channel, all right? And if you move your mag release a little bit back and forth, that kind of helps, and then it'll pop right in, just like that. Last but not least, take your flathead and push down on the top of it, just to make sure it's fully seated. And mine wasn't really fully seated. So that's a good extra check just to make sure it's fully seated in there. Oh man, that feels good. That's positive engagement 100% of the way through. So it's really hard to tell what you're missing out on. Initially I was like, you know, it's not bad. I mean, what comes with it seems fine. This is positive engagement. I can tell right when I set my finger on there that there's tension. You know, I got to deliberately push this to actuate it and drop a mag. Whereas before, it was kind of like, that might be enough. Well, might be is not really the same as, you know, a definitive yes, it's going to work. This is going to keep that engagement and make sure we don't have accidental mag drops. And it doesn't really add much tension either. That is absolutely perfect. All right, let's go ahead and put this baby back together. All right, for this little segment of the reassembly, you're going to need your aluminum frame, your polymer frame, your hammer seat cover, that hammer seat pin, and obviously my little takedown pin spring jumped out on me, so I'm going to need that. I'm going to put it right back in. And let's start with that first. So we got our aluminum frame here. All right, you just want to make sure everything is there. So we got our slide stop on this side. All right, it's in there correctly. You can see how it goes all the way back and sits in this channel right here. We're going to take our little slide stop / takedown pin spring and get it into position. So what you really want to do is make sure it's captured completely in this little circular portion right here. All right, it might fight you a little bit, but just larger flathead. That way it'll push down on both sides simultaneously and make sure it's fully seated. So it's in there, make sure that slide stop doesn't pop out. So we got our little takedown lever spring, slide stop spring in there. Our hammer pin still in there, hammer spring in the proper orientation. We didn't mess with any of this, thankfully. There's other videos to show you all that if you like. You know, it's a pretty simple, straightforward process. If you're doing one thing, you might as well do it all when you got it in pieces like this. All right, and then you got our trigger bar, trigger return spring, trigger. There's the pin on the opposite side. That's your hammer hinge pin. Then your hammer spring right down here. All right, so let's drop this baby right in. You want to kind of keep it all compressed here up front. Grab your frame. You're going to nose dive in with that trigger first. Hammer spring will drop right down in the magazine well there. So nose diving forward with our aluminum frame, making sure all these springs and levers are getting captured and staying tight as it goes in. Pull your trigger a little bit, compress the front of it, pull up on the back, and then take your little micro tip flathead, and this is your hammer seat down in here. This is a must. Push all the way forward with your micro tip on that hammer seat, and then we're going to compress the aluminum frame simultaneously. So pushing forward, and then we're going to drop in that aluminum frame, and then we're going to check it. You want to make sure that hammer seat got in front of that hammer. So you can see it there. So you got your hammer right here, and your hammer seat's right up front, and you should be able to just grab that hammer seat and move it forward, just like that. So if it'll move forward of the hammer, you're good. You're ready to go. If it'll not, definitely make sure you get it set properly. You'll have a dead trigger otherwise. So that's an important critical step right there. Next will be setting the tension on that hammer spring. All right, so grab your hammer seat pin just like that. If you're needing those pliers, you want to have that single notch cut right there on the magazine release side right here. Drop it right in, get it to seat, and then grab your 3/32 inch punch, and you're going to pull right up on that hammer spring. You want to get that loop right over it, drop it in place, get it to locate on that single notch right there. Magazine release side, single notch is right there. Hammer spring is located on it, perfect. All right, good. Now we just got to put our hammer seat cover right over that hammer seat there. All right, so just push it right in. You know, the grip all matches, pretty easy to tell. It's locked in place. Now we just got to throw our frame pins in there. Bench block, start with the rear frame pin. It's that one with the center cut in the middle of it. Get it started by hand a little bit. Take your hammer and start tapping away. And you can finish it up a little bit with your 1/8 inch punch. Just make sure it's fully seated. All right, fully seated. Nice and even on both sides. Now we'll take our front frame pin, smooth one, and drop it right in. Compressing that aluminum frame a little bit too helps. Make sure they're all lined up, the holes. Smooth one is always so much easier. And then you can clean it up with your 1/8 inch punch. Make sure it's even on both sides. All right, we're good to go right there. So we get our frame pins back in, aluminum frames in, got spring tension on our hammer. Good, we're ready to go ahead and put the slide back on. So grab your slide, make sure your slide is all put together. So you got your recoil spring and guide rod right here. And it locates right in that little cut on the lug there on the barrel, just like that. And make sure your barrel is in there completely flush, all right, completely pressed in all the way. You don't want it to be sitting like this or anything weird. And we'll go ahead and slide it right on, just like that. Then we'll take our 3/32 inch punch, drop it right in like this. That's gonna go ahead and make sure the holes are lined up for us once we lock it back. Now we're gonna take our takedown pin. You can see there's that single little cutout on the pin right there, and that's where the little two dimples are. So those two dimples tell you where that little cut is on the pin. So dimples facing up, little notches facing up, kind of come in at a 45 like this and push down on that spring and get that smooth side to basically compress that spring, push all the way in, take your little micro tip and rotate it until you feel it lock. You can almost hear that click, and then try to turn it, all right, stays and locates in place. All right, so those little dimples should be facing down when it's locked, all right, and don't worry about, there's slight movement like that. That's so we can take it out again in the future, but it's gonna stay nice and captured right in that little notch in there. All right, man, look at that. So let's go ahead and do a quick function check. So go ahead and pull the trigger. Nice, good. All right, hold it. Listen for that reset. There we go. All right, man, yeah. Now the ultimate test, let's see how our magazine release works. Oh man, that even sounds good and crisp when you drop it right in there. Yeah. That actually feels nice and smooth. And positive engagement, you have to give it a deliberate press, deliberate action right there, so we don't have any accidental drops. So you have to actually hit it deliberately, not just accidentally from gripping it. That's awesome, man. That's perfect. Real simple solution. You guys asked for it. There it is. Well, there you have it, guys. That's how to install that extra power magazine release spring into your LCP1, LCP2, or your 22 LR version LCP2. Really excited about this. It does a ton of functional benefit for our LCPs. I mean, it's hard to really promote a spring, but something like this that is going to provide some functional benefit, you're not going to accidentally lose your magazine while shooting. It's a must, and it's a good piece of insurance and peace of mind that it's not going to happen when it's most crucial. And it's going to last a lot longer than the factory spring. So it's 15% stronger, but it's also got improved geometry to give you positive engagement at all times. Even when this spring does wear eventually, it's going to still have far more positive engagement than the factory spring. The design alone is much more beneficial than what was in here from the factory. And not to mention it's also a little bit stronger, so it's going to require a deliberate motion to hit that magazine release to drop that mag. You're not going to be shooting and accidentally drop the mag. Love the feedback and reviews we're already getting. Guys are excited and thankful that we made this. That gets us motivated, man, so we appreciate it. And we always appreciate you guys sharing this stuff in the forums, spreading the word. Jump on over to the MCARBO forum, man. We'd love to have you in there. A lot of great guys in there, like-minded. All right, so it's fun. We get to trade ideas, and we're always doing stuff special in the forum that we don't do on the other channels. We do appreciate a like or a subscribe here on YouTube, but the forum, man, that is the Alamo. If stuff ever got banned, you know how it can be social media. It's very particular about what you post, so that is where our last stand will be, in the MCARBO Brothered forum. So really hope to see you guys over there. Thank you, MCARBO Brothered, for all your ideas and your support. Really appreciate that. And as always, happy shooting.